My early childhood was really terrible. You can't even imagine what it means to be black in Russia, especially in a small town in the north of Russia. Especially when your own white mother abandoned you. I guess I survived against all odds. My biological mother was supposed to give birth to me in St. Petersburg, but labor started prematurely while she was doing a student practice in Cherepavets, an industrial city in northern Russia. You know, a white mother with a black child was a big scandal. That is why after 7 days she abandoned me and handed me over to a children's shelter. You don't know, but in the 1980s in the USSR, a black child in a small town was something beyond. There was a little chance for me to be adopted at that time. But 2 years later, Varya, my sister, came there. She was a schoolgirl. She worked as a volunteer, helped with children. We had a completely instant connection, and she realized that she didn't want to go out, didn't want to leave me, and persuaded her mother to adopt me. So I stayed in Cherepavets and started living with my family. They knew that I was a child from Africa. No one knew, even in the children's shelter, that there were any roots in Rwanda and that there was such a country at all.
It's time for Africa. I'm in Rwanda. Not so long ago, it was the bloodiest point on the map of the continent. Less than 30 years ago, one of the largest genocides in the world broke out here. This tragedy was 5 times faster than the Holocaust in terms of the murder rate. Just in 3 months, about 1 million people were killed in the most sophisticated ways. These were 2 neighboring people, speaking the same language, living nearby, growing up on the same fairy tales. And at some point, one of them raised a hand against the other. What happened, though? A very skillful propaganda did. It managed to explain to the Hutu that the Tutsi are not people. They are parasites, and that they themselves were going to attack.
Uwumva avuga ati igihe ntibindeba, igihe nifite n'ubwoba, natubise. Abashinzwe kumudukiza nibashyira umwete bamudukize. Abakozi bandi beza bifuza gukora igihugu cyabo barahari. Abo bagambanyi bagiye kwiga imbunda zo kuza kutumara, murabazi gisimbazi, ubazi n'abatubwire babadukize.
You can hardly imagine what horrors our country had to overcome that affected every family, every house. When the genocide began in 1994, I was 20 years old. It affected our family too. We were 6 children, mom and dad. 3 months later, only me and my older brother survived.
Françoise was born into a Tutsi family. All her relatives were killed by the Hutu. For many years, these 2 peoples were equal citizens of the same country. But one day, the government decided that the reason of all evil in Rwanda was the Tutsi. So, what was to be done? The government decided to use a proven tool of hatred, propaganda.
They wrote in the newspapers, "We must kill these snakes." Journalists started calling us snakes instead of people. They wrote that the Tutsis were not the indigenous people of Rwanda, that hundreds of years ago we came here from Ethiopia, so we were Ethiopians, not Rwandans. They cited some false historical facts, that this land has always belonged to the Hutu, the only indigenous people. Therefore, no Tutsi should survive.
You see, it's got those silver seats, and I just thought of Interstellar. I imagine a space theme here. And they want to do that too. They also like the space theme. Anyway, we'll have to think about it. I think it should be kind of surreal. There's damage to the wall because of the chairs. They're probably hitting the wall, so it needs restoration. We did something like that in the office of our customers once. We did just a tape like this along the wall. Not tape, plastic. How did I find out my real name? It happened when I was an adult already, and it turned out that Kambibi was the name of my grandmother, my father's mother. I found out my name thanks to the note. For many years, I wanted to find out anything about my parents, about where my roots come from. And one day, I just came to Cherepovets to visit my mother and sister once again and said, that's it, I'm going to find something. And we went to the archive. It was a large old building with columns from the Stalinist Empire era. A small and fragile woman who looked like our actress Leah Hijakova opened the door for us. In this huge room with these rows, with high shelves, with a bunch of folders, somehow, I don't know, she found this little note. And it was written there, I, so-and-so, so-and-so, give up Kambibi, and in parentheses, Katya so-and-so. It was written on the 7th day after my birth, and it was written then, and I have no more complaints. I live at such address. She wrote the address of the dormitory, and thanks to this, we found everything else. That dormitory was in Leningrad. Now it's St. Petersburg. Then, thanks to this information, I wrote a request to the archive in St. Petersburg, but I didn't get any answer. I wrote to this institute too. Everything was useless. After that, half a year passed. I started to lose heart. My friend persuaded me to go to the program on Russian TV, Wait for Me, where the people search for their lost relatives. And we came there.
Добрый вечер. Вы смотрите программу «Жди меня». Итак, мы начинаем.
I told them that I was looking for my parents, that I had no resentment. I just wanted to know how their fate had turned out. I remember that the program was on the air on Friday at 5 p.m. I was wondering if anybody really was watching TV at that time. As it turned out, a lot of people were.
I got a call from our common classmate. We studied together, lived in the same dormitory. And she said, "Didn't you watch the program, Wait for Me, on such and such a date?" And I watched this program. It was repeated a little bit later. And I saw a girl there. She was shown briefly, but her features seemed very familiar to me. I saw features of my friend. Despite the fact that my friend is light-eyed and so russet-haired, I realized who we were going to talk about even before the interview. And indeed, the girl's mother turned out to be my friend. I met her many years ago. We entered the institute together, and in the first year we lived in the same room in the dormitory. And by the way, we are still friends. I knew she was expecting a child. I knew who was father. I knew from her own words that she had received an offer to leave. But she said, "I will never go to Rwanda. We are the children of Soviet Union times. We were brought up in the spirit of patriotism and great love to our motherland." And she said, "I just can't imagine this. How will my children live without Arctic or without Red Square? How is it possible?" Then, when we parted for summer vacation, let's just say that the pregnancy was still there. And when we came back in autumn to the institute, there was nothing. I said, "You were expecting a baby." She answered, "I had an abortion. That's it. Let's close this theme."
2 days later, I got a message. My birth mother's ex-classmate wrote to me, and I received such messages. "We know your mom. We know your father." There is a group on Russian social network ВКонтакте, and they sent me so many pictures and confirmations of what my father looked like. Among them, there was a picture of my father in Cherepovets during his internship. And he really stood out from everyone else. And by the way, that was 1982, the Soviet Union. Everyone dressed modestly enough, but he stood out. He liked to show off. I can tell it by his suits, by his pants, by the colors. His shoes were different from everyone else's. A different hat, an expensive cut of the shirt. He was a dandy. My birth mom called me a week later. I met my mom and I realized a lot of things about myself after that meeting. I met her at the train station and we went to my place. Temporarily, I was living in Balashikha. It is a suburb of Moscow. I remember how we were driving in the car. Some radio was playing. She was silent most of the time on the road. Then we arrived and talked all day. My parents met at university. They studied together in the same group. And it happened that they fell in love with each other, and I was born. But my father was not an easy man. He was almost 10 years older than my mother. Well, as everyone knows, after the 1980s, many doors opened for us, Soviet people, and many students from other countries began to come to Soviet Union, from India, from African countries, and my father was no exception. And I was not the only dark-skinned child who appeared in Russia at that time. My father came here to study at the Metallurgical Institute. That's how they met. It was the best man in her life, as she personally confessed to me. And she told that it was true love. As she told me, he was not generally interested in children, although he did offer to marry her. But my mom, as far as I know, refused. There were too many fears. And he simply left after graduating from the institute and never came back. The only question I asked her was, why? Why did you hide it? Why didn't anyone know about it? No one at all. Not even her best friend. And do you know what she told me? That answer was stuck in my head for a very long time. The answer that I gave my whole life when I was asked something and I didn't want to answer. So nobody asked me. And I remember it triggered me so much, and I stopped saying that anymore. I mean, I realized how awful it is. Nobody asked me.
How did her life turn out after she gave birth to you and abandoned you?
As far as I know, everything's fine. She has a family, a husband.
But she has no children.
Yes, no children. We exchanged our phone numbers, and we had been corresponding for some time. Then we were friends on Vkontakte, but I didn't feel any interest from that side. And then I realized that if a person doesn't write anything, then there's no need. I won't insist either. It was more difficult with my father. I looked for the Rwandan embassy in Moscow. They welcomed me very warmly. They listened to me very attentively. And I wrote them a request. And then this request was lost for some time. But then a man wrote to me during the lockdown, when we were all locked up. He wrote in English, "I heard about your story at the embassy. I'd like to help you." His name was Oliver. Oliver turned out to be a really sincere and kind person. I asked him, "Why did you decide to help me?" He said, "Because I looked for my relatives too, and I also received help once." Now it's clearer to me. During the genocide in Rwanda, many families were broken up, many people were lost, missing in action, and they still cannot be found. There were about 1 million people killed, and it seems to me that it is very important for the country to find all of its sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, even if they were scattered around the world. But a lot of people had to emigrate. Many of them lost contact with their relatives and don't know who they are or where they come from, and live somewhere else in other countries. And unfortunately, I'm not the only case. And I think I was lucky that I managed to find the information. How many people didn't succeed? That's about what war does in general. There is a rather common phrase when a person asks, "Show me your family." But I don't have a photo. I have no one to show because I have no family.
By those years, there were two radios. Radio Rwanda. I was not aware of what was happening on radio because I was too young to listen and know what's happening. But what I remember is songs which were there. There were songs which were played on radio but has the message. Today I can analyze and I know those songs were mobilizing people to kill each other. But at the time, I was not aware of it. And that's what I can say about radio and tell them. But before also, there were people who were being killed around.
Radio Rwanda. All day long they were saying that the Tutsi were our enemies and we should hunt them, pursue them as enemies. From morning till night, kill, take to the streets, kill.
Mais avant j'étais musicien. En 1989.
At first, I was a musician. I founded my own music school in 1989. And then, when the Civil War broke out, the newspapers were a mess. The newspapers were lying. You couldn't see the truth about what was happening in Rwanda. And I thought, why wouldn't I found a little magazine that would tell people the truth about what was going on, so that people could have other information? You can't keep making music when people in the country are still divided into good and bad. My magazine was called Kibirinka, which translates to sunset. It's the favorite color in Rwanda. If you notice, at sunset, all the hills are painted with these beautiful, bright colors. And I decided that while people were being bombarded with aggressive information from pro-government media, I could help them to have a rest from aggression with my magazine.
To make it clearer, in modern Russia, Sem Godi would already have a proud status of an enemy of the state. And the title of the chief propagandist would undoubtedly go to Felicien Kabuga, a media magnate, the owner of Thousand Hills Radio and Kangura magazine. The first issue of Kangura came out in 1990 and caused a real stir among readers by its racist rhetoric. All those ideas appeared excessive. However, what seemed radical and criminal in the very beginning, just 6 months later, became a state ideology.
The first thing they published was the 10 Commandments. You know, like there are 10 Commandments of God. So they made 10 Hutu commandments. The first commandment, you cannot marry a Tutsi, because the children that will be born from such a marriage will kill their Hutu brothers. You can't sit next to a Tutsi. You can't eat, you can't drink. If you have a Tutsi friend, avoid him as if he was sick. You cannot live next door to Tutsis. You must drive them away.
What was the circulation of this magazine? How popular was it?
It became so popular because it was not for sale. The propagandists, they distributed these newspapers for free among the population. The circulation was no bigger than any other edition. Well, let's say from 10,000 to 20,000 copies. But this newspaper was passed from hand to hand.
8 years ago, At the onset of the events between Ukraine and Russia, Russia's main central TV channel showed a crucified boy and said, "Look what Ukrainians do to children." Later, it turned out that the whole story was completely made up. All the eyewitnesses were false and the story did not exist. Was there anything similar in your propaganda?
Yeah. There was a man here, a Catholic journalist. He did Catholic Chronicles on Radio Rwanda. And the local propaganda said that he took the flag of the ruling party and dressed his dog up in it. Like that's how his dog used to walk the streets, just like that. He tied a flag around his dog's neck. He got killed. There was a huge attack on him. And it was like the Bin Laden attack. He was a Tutsi. His neighbours wrote a denunciation against him. But later, it turned out, he never had a dog. And do you see that building in the middle? That used to be the home of RTLM, the same Thousand Hills radio station that was the source of evil, that preached hatred before the genocide and during it.
Is that tower from that time?
Yes, this antenna is left from that time. It's the only thing that is left today. Even before the genocide ended, a bomb had fallen on the building. But that didn't stop the radio station. They moved their remaining equipment into the car and continued to broadcast from the car, like a mobile radio. In Rwanda and elsewhere in Africa, even in the 90s, the radio had a very surprising and unique impact on people. I would like to draw a parallel, maybe not the most appropriate one, but still. Look, here in Russia, relatively recently, it became known that one remarkable organization called the private military company Wagner had its own radio station in the Central African Republic. In fact, it was not so much their radio station, it's more like it has been created with their money. We can believe it or not, but that's not the point. However, there was another thing that really struck me in this situation. Firstly, that it's still relevant in the 21st century during the times of television and the internet. And secondly, the fact that the cost of setting up a radio station like this, the overall cost of setting it up is $10,000. So, here is $10,000 and you have a tool in your pocket that reaches well into millions of people, you could say. And the costs of producing programs are also minimal. No cameras or expensive equipment are needed. In Africa, it's still an extremely significant force. A transistor radio hanging on a dirty rope in a store, in any shop, is a more sophisticated tool. It is a much more significant tool than television in other countries because there's no full-fledged television broadcasting, or it is very weak and backward. And the radio message is indeed a tool of colossal importance. The methods of propaganda are always the same. First of all, you have to dehumanize those people whom you want to vilify. They're not people, they are cockroaches. Then you have to present yourself as the victim. These people want to kill us. We loved these people, and they secretly hated us. They pull facts from history, find the Tutsi characters with negative reputations, and bring them into the present, show their negative impact on modern people. Here's a story from my childhood. They told on the radio a history about the Queen Mother, whose name was Kanjugira. She was a Tutsi. Like every morning, she got out of bed and leaned on two Hutu babies. Right here, near the collarbone, to get up. And everybody believed it. I believed it. Where they had to get two Hutu babies every morning, different ones always, isn't clear at all. Where did this story even come from?
Deuxième étape,
The second stage is get the right to blame.
culpabiliser, essayer de montrer que celui-là,
Trying to show that you are much smarter than your listeners and readers. The authoritative people can't be wrong, can they?
la population est différente. Parce que les grands propagandistes, le docteur, il a un docteur.
There was a great propagandist, a doctor of history, a university professor. His name was Leon. He came from Canada.
On a ramené du Canada, qui a fait un discours incendiaire.
He actively argued and spoke everywhere that the Tutsi came from Ethiopia.
Le moyen le plus simple,
He said that these Tutsis should be thrown into the river, so that the river that flows towards Ethiopia would bring these Tutsis home.
qui va l'amener, qui va les ramener chez eux.
And a university professor said it.
C'est un professeur d'université, c'est pas question d'éducation.
And we need to choose the best journalists, the best presenters, so that they do complex scientific analyses, but sarcastic and with irony.
Des analyses scientifiques, mais sophistes, erronées. Et puis encore, préparer les milices. Autodéfense. Bon, là, ce n'est pas pour
The third
attaquer
step
ces
is to
gens,
train the
mais
police
dans
to
l'entretemps,
defend
vous
themselves.
gardez les
Not to
armes,
attack
on ne
people,
sait jamais,
but simply to show the population that there is a defense and that it's not necessary to aggressively attack the authorities.
Très lente, mais répétitive. Et puis encore,
The policemen, they were recruited mostly from the poor strata. They were recruited among the
des
unemployed.
facteurs qui ont
And they were told, if you kill someone who has a motorcycle or a car, you can take their property. They won't be punished for it.
Et là, lui dire que si tu...
The same was said to ordinary people later on, that you'll not be punished for your actions.
Puis qu'il ne sera pas puni.
How did it happen? 3 months later, he just called you and said, I've found everybody, or what?
It was such a stressful moment for me, and it was a period when my relationship had ended, and literally 24 hours later, in the middle of the night, I was under certain stress, driving somewhere with friends from the dacha. It was an hour or two in the morning, and I've got a whole bunch of messages on WhatsApp, and I just couldn't read them all, so many messages. My head just started to explode from the information I had learned. He was sending and sending me text messages and pictures. There were my sisters, their pictures. I was driving in the car from the dacha at 2 o'clock, and my brain just was exploding. These are my relatives, and I immediately subconsciously started looking for common features. And I found them. I immediately fall in love with Shalom, my niece, the daughter of Asumpta, one of the sisters, because I see that they look like me, among other things. And after that, I could look at those pictures for hours.
How did he find them? Is there any place where he went to ask about that? And whom was he looking for?
To begin with, Oliver is a very communicative person. He's a consultant, he works with companies, and I understand why they appreciate him. He basically, I think, consults everyone who asks in one way or another. Kigali is a small city. Rwanda is also a small country, just 13 million people live here, and about 1 million in Kigali. Comparing to Moscow, 13 million people live here in the city. And in whole Rwanda, it's the same number of people.
Like one Russian area.
And as far as I know, he started asking and looking for people who could know my father. And one woman got in touch with him, an elderly woman, and she said she remembered my father. They lived together in the same area of Mugombo. Then she passed on the info to the second person, then the third, then the fourth. Somehow, through the chain, they gave him a vector to Rulinda, and he arrived there and met my family. My sisters live in a small province. I understand that they don't have the internet there, no computer, but they have a neighbor who helped Oliver with his search. And with his help, yes, we talked to some of the sisters. It was very confusing because they don't speak English. I don't speak Rwandan. We had an interpreter. It was all amazing for them too. It was out of the blue that they have a sister in Russia. They have husbands, a bunch of children. Abortion is banned in Rwanda, by the way. I think it's also because of the aftermath of the genocide. So I have a lot of nephews, 4 or 5, something like that, on each side. And at first we called just on speakerphone, and then we had a video call recently. We had already agreed about it before, and the sisters were also there. We saw each other. And do you remember I said at the beginning that one priest who had a brother, sister, father and mother who died was asked, "Show me your family." He says, "What do I have to show? I don't have pictures of my family because it doesn't exist." And there are a lot of people like that in Rwanda. Thank God, it turns out I have a lot of relatives.
And you want a picture like this?
Yes, I do. I'd been waiting for this my whole life, but I feel like it's going to be something incredible. I guess it's a trip that probably is going to turn my whole life around. It was very funny when I was landing, because I had been flying for 14 hours with a layover in Ethiopia, and I can't sleep on airplanes. It's hard for me to sleep while sitting, so I didn't sleep for 14 hours, and I was waiting the whole way. That's it. Now we are going to land. I thought I would definitely take a video of Rwanda. I would feel something important, because my return ticket was already an overnight flight. And what do you think? I fell asleep. I woke up to the fact that our plane had already landed. But when I got out, I was embraced by such warm, pleasant green air. I felt like I was home. I didn't know how to explain it. There was no dimming, no feeling that I had come to visit somewhere. Yeah, I came home. When I came down, I was really amazed. The first thing that catches your eye instantly when you fly into Rwanda is the cleanliness. It's clean everywhere. Clean airport, clean grounds. Then, after a while, I went through passport control. They started asking questions, a question after question, and they tried to find out why I came.
And you told your story?
Yeah. I told my story to the customs officers. There were about 5 people near me. They listened, they looked at my picture, they wished me good luck. Indeed, right upon arrival, I met such a great hospitality. Warmly, joyfully, they wished me good luck and said that they were also happy for me. It was really nice. There was a little African adventure yesterday. I arrived with 2 bags, and the second bag got stuck somewhere between Ethiopia and Rwanda.
What was in the bag?
Everything. All the clothes, numerous gifts for relatives, toothbrush, everything. They told me, don't worry, it's a common situation. Usually it happens. They're always late. Your luggage will be here tonight or tomorrow. Here's your paper, write it down, call the baggage office, and we'll sort it out. There was a woman from Pakistan with me. She had 3 bags, and all 3 didn't come. I wanted to buy a national dress. I've already looked at the women here. It's insanely beautiful. I was going to do it anyway, but losing my luggage accelerated that moment. Now we're going to the shop. I want to buy my first Rwandan dress.
So what is the most national print here? Can you advise? What is the most national print? Can you advise? Okay, let's try on this and this. And I'm not sure in my hands. I need something colored. No fitness.
When was the first time you realized you were dark-skinned?
When we were walking with my mom, people used to come up to me asking if they could touch my hair and why the girl was so black. Kids asked that. In the first grade, when I had just entered the school, I had a hard time. It lasted the entire first month. I was being bullied. They could say black ass, all these usual insults, nigger, go wash up. And one day I came home in tears. My sister sat down and said to me, Katya, listen, here's the thing. Mom is working. I'm studying now. She was entering the college at that time. We won't be able to come and help you every time they do it. You have to learn to stand up for yourself. I mean, hit if you have to. But then something happened. I like to remember it. I was a little girl. I was 9 or 10 years old. I was sitting and watching the Grammy Awards. And I don't even remember who was being awarded, how it all was happening. But one of the participants comes out. I mean, the one who announces the nominees and then opens the final envelope. And Erykah Badu comes out. If anyone knows, she's an African-American woman. She's a soul and rhythm and blues singer. And her special thing, her recognizable feature, I guess, is her huge afro. Just huge. She cultivates it. She came out with such a great pride. She carried her afro so well that I remembered it for the rest of my life. After that, I wanted to grow my hair. I realized that it's absolutely not a shame. It's not a flaw. It's completely different. All my life before, I had had the feeling of being a stranger here. That's why it was so important for me to know my roots. Because when I know my roots, when I know where I came from, I start to recognize myself. It's some kind of absolute sense of completeness. You know, there are certain chakras, yes, that we explore. There are certain egregors that need to be filled. These missing gaps in you. It's a kind of puzzle, of course. And in this case, the puzzle is you. You're putting it together. Slowly, diligently, but you are putting it together. Sometimes it is painful. Sometimes it brings you joy. But as a result, the more pieces you add, the more you like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
More and more I feel complete. Before, it was kind of a fragmented state. You don't know who you are, but you want to. Actually, it's really hard.
I just tried, I need to know the cost. 15. Ah, I thought it 15. Yes! No. I was afraid. 15. Yes! Oh.
mu ngabo z'igihugu urumva ko nta byitso birimo. Iki kibazo kirakomeye kuko ibyitso biri mu ngabo z'igihugu nibyo biriho bituma igihugu inyenzi rero zijagata igihugu cyacu.
Despite the fact that the Hutu propagandists emphasized their difference from the terrible Tutsi and even called them inyenzi, which means cockroaches on the air, according to researchers, Rwandans are genetically one people. The only thing that distinguished them was their occupation. The Hutu had been prosperous farmers for centuries. The Tutsi were simple herders. Only by the end of the 19th century, the Tutsi began to rise, to occupy key positions, to live richer than before. And even the king of Rwanda was one of them. But during the First World War, the Europeans interrupted the traditional way of life. As it often happens, white colonizers, without much understanding, carried out a land reform and took away part of the pastures from the Hutu. Tutsi representatives, on the contrary, were promoted to key positions. The first conflicts broke out, but an important detail appeared there. If earlier the oppressed Hutu could still work hard, get rich, and become a Tutsi, by the advent of Belgians, nationality was indicated in the passport. And, as we know, that doesn't lead to anything good. The government changed after the Second World War. The king of Rwanda, he was a Tutsi, demanded the independence. But Belgians didn't want to lose the colony, so they changed the tactics. They suddenly began to cooperate with the Hutu to incite them to overthrow the government. A revolution broke out in the country. First, the Tutsi attacked one of the Hutu leaders. The Hutu responded by burning down the Tutsi houses. More than 100,000 people died. Many were left homeless and had to flee to the neighboring countries. In 1960, Rwanda held its first elections. 90% of the seats in the government went to the Hutu. In 1961, Rwanda transitioned from a monarchy to a republic and gained independence in 1962.
But there was one thing that was also observed in most African countries. There was almost no political system in Rwanda. It was not established. It was not created at the previous stages. But it's very important. It led to the situation that very immature political forces came to power. They all had some magical words in their names, something like democracy or national and whatnot, but they had no real experience in managing the territory, people, economy, complex processes, experience in state building. By the way, that's why you can see the increased attention and claims to the power of the army in different countries. The army is a pre-existing structure. There's the chain of command there. There's a certain tool to exercise some kind of power. The fact that it has weapons is important, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is that it is a coordinated structure, and in the absence of political parties, the army comes to the fore very often. It happens not because of the ambitions of the military, but in fact, the army acted as the only political force that was capable of taking responsibility for something, accepting certain responsibility.
In 1988, a real opposition appeared against President Habyarimana. The escaped Tutsis formed their own army in neighboring Uganda, the Rwandan Patriotic Front. Its leader was Paul Kagame.
The Rwandan National Front, as they called themselves, started dreaming and acting to bring down the existing regime. This war started and soon rocked the whole country, and as a result, by 1994, everything had been ready for this regime. These authorities to decide to exterminate both the Tutsi, who were in the country, and those who were attacking the country as part of this front. The Tutsi were not only the intruders here, they were also foreign agents, because they were about to get some real help from abroad, and they were advancing from there. All those fears, they were materializing. Please, you finally have the proof that they are supremacists, scoundrels and villains, and it is necessary to deal with them.
Now, let's explain a little bit about the rebel army located abroad by the example from our days. It's like if, I don't know, Alexei Navalny, after having been poisoned in 2020, stayed in Germany after his recovery and started forming a paramilitary unit there with the help of foreign countries. Is it like this or not?
This is a rather bold generalization and extrapolation. We must remember that there are still a few states between Germany and the territory of the Russian Federation, and those states would hardly be delighted with this idea.
Well, I don't know. Let it be Belarus.
No, this is very important, because this front, the Patriotic Front that the Tutsi started to form, it was literally at their doorstep, almost in Rwanda itself. Considering the size of this country, it's as if in our neighboring city, the military actions had already begun, and the offensive is underway. You see, these states of Africa that are not very large, the size of their army is always not very impressive. It's several thousand people.
Where did they get the money for the guns?
Look, it's basically this kind of light small weapons. It's not howitzers or HIMARS or anything like that. There are no armored troops. The level of armament is quite arbitrary. All the notorious machetes, hatchets and so on are also weapons.
The elite were the second to go against Habyarimana. Their own people. It was the radical conservative Hutu power party. The propagandist Kabuga was among them. They created something like private military company to carry out purges within the system and accused the president of insufficient cruelty towards the Tutsi, especially after juvenile Habyarimana, under world pressure, decided to start the negotiation process with the RPF. And in April 1994, he flew to them.
They agreed that Habyarimana's government in Rwanda would seek to build relations with representatives of the Patriotic Front. It was not even a pact, but rather an agreement of intent. It described how we would proceed further to bring the conflict of the offensive, the conflict of demand, to some common denominator. Because actually we are one people. We are fighting for power, but we can give up some part of this power. You will be thereby included in the power structures, that very Patriotic Front. We will cede some ministerial positions to you, and so on and so forth. Maybe we'll finally unite our army units into a single whole.
We don't know till today, we don't know who launched the rocket on the plane. We don't know who did it. But what I know is that he was shot when he was from Arusha to Rwanda. But what was written in the paper was not.
In your opinion, who shot down the president's plane?
When I want to laugh it off, I say that he had a lot of enemies then, and I was one of them. But I was not the one who killed him. In fact, there were so many enemies interested in the death of the incumbent president then. There was the Rwandan Patriotic Front, with whom the president was at war. Next, there was the Hutu power clan. These were extremists who did not want to negotiate with the Patriotic Front and other parties. When the president said that he would stop the war, that he would negotiate with the RPF, they were simply not satisfied. They wanted permission to act to remove the RPF representatives, and the president decided to negotiate with them.
I've watched several contemporary investigations about this conducted by journalists. There are several versions I've heard, and I'm interested in your scientific commentary on each of them. There was a version in one movie, a French one, that Habyarimana's wife set up this accident. The second version was voiced by the BBC, and importantly, after that report, it was banned in Rwanda.
Right.
That channel and the journalist were declared persona non grata. And the journalist provided the evidence that it was Kagame himself who had organized it in order to get the presidency.
Look, it's an absolutely viable version too, because the Rwandan Patriotic Front was quite a serious organization at that time, which had a lot of technical capabilities to set it up, arrange and implement all these things. But okay, we are talking about millions of victims. But who wrote all those denunciations? Whoever shot down the plane. But who then managed to organize the murder of almost 1 million people in a really short period of time? An unprecedentedly short period of time, right? What prompted them to dehumanize themselves and become these cannibals of the 20th century?
The genocide. What did you know about it before this trip?
I only had Wikipedia data that there was a genocide, there were two nations and so on. Again, I had an inner fear of watching a lot about it. It was creepy to me. I guess that it even stopped me somehow when I tried to learn more about it, because I was afraid and just go into pain shock. I can't even imagine the feelings of my sisters. I can't even imagine the feelings of my brothers. I can't even imagine the feelings of my father. I can't even imagine the feelings of the people in general. They all found themselves in the midst of genocide. Once I saw the movie Hotel Rwanda. I watched it for the first time even before I knew I was from Rwanda. And it so wildly impressed me. I remember that I couldn't sleep well for a long time after that. It shows children who are 8 years old with daggers, how they are prepared to kill, how they cut and shoot their own peers. And it's still a feature film.
Do you draw any analogies with today's war between Russia and Ukraine?
Of course. The first thing I thought when it had started was, why again? I mean, one of my homelands had already experienced the horrors. And the same things are happening with the second one now.
abatumva ko nyine abantu bose bahagurukiye kurwanya inyenzi inkotanyi n'ababwiye abasirikare bacu nibo ba mbere mbabwira urubyiruko rwagutse kugira ngo bafashe abasirikare bacu mbabwira inkumi mbabwira abasore murabyumva rero inyenzi ntabwo zishobora gukandira abantu bose.
The weapons were distributed by the government. There were troops called Interahamwe. They gave machetes to people to kill their neighbours. Some people had firearms besides machetes. All ordinary people like me were divided into groups. There was one soldier in each group who had a gun, and the others had ordinary knives or other homemade tools. If a person didn't have a machete or some other weapon, he had to make the weapon himself. I just used a small knife. The military had lists of those who were to be killed, prepared in advance. These lists were drawn up by district leaders, village chiefs. Lists contained the addresses of all the Tutsis. Then they started to create these artificial borders, checkpoints at every crossroads with barriers. In fact, you couldn't just walk through the streets anymore and cross them. There were some areas and there was no army there. In that case, weapons were distributed to ordinary locals, to Hutus. All of that was under the control of the authorities of the state. There were some villages where people refused to kill each other. Then the burgomaster and his executive came to solve the problem. He read a decree from above and asked, "Why do you refuse to carry out the order?" The organizers of the genocide forced Hutus to arm, to rape, to beat, and to kill Tutsis, and to appropriate their property. There were those who were responsible for briefing each group. On April 6th, the night after the president's plane went down, we were briefed and we knew where we were meeting in the morning, where our work area was. Today we're going to kill people on that mountain over there. The soldiers were in charge. They would find the Tutsi families and bring us there. Another group worked like bloodhounds. We looked for the Tutsi everywhere. On the first day, our group killed 7 people. On the second day, 4.
That day, they came to kill us. Everyone was at home. My mom, my dad, all my brothers and sisters. A lot of men broke in. They were bare, chested, and splattered with blood. They said, "We've come to kill you because you're not human." They grabbed all my relatives, everyone except my older brother, who was not at home at the time. He was in the army. They had big panga knives and arrows. They cut everyone in front of me. They tried to kill me too, or rather, they didn't notice that I was still alive. They threw me and my whole family into a pile of dead bodies. I was pregnant at that time. I was carrying my first daughter in my womb. And after all those cuts, I kept thinking I was going to die any minute. And I basically thought I had been already dead. I had no one left. My whole family had been killed. I was lying among the corpses and I didn't know where to go. Who would help me?
This is the most appropriate for broadcast footage of the chronicle of the genocide. It is just impossible to show the rest of them on YouTube. But believe me, there is everything that can be done with machetes, arrows, and sticks. And my advice is, even for the most curious ones, not to look for them on Google.
I didn't see anybody killing anyone. I didn't see it. You see, I was a little boy. I used to hide. And my mom used to hide ourselves very far from what we can see. But one day when we were moving, I saw a man who was caught there with a neck which is about to be removed. It was very terrifying to me. It's from 6th of April where people were started killed. I remember that so much because we shifted from home to the bushes. It was a period of the growing of sorghum. You get it? Mm-hmm. People were hiding in the sorghum plantation. That was a good shelter. And it was the period of rain. That was a good moment for those who were hiding. Because those who were hunting people to kill were waiting for the rain to finish so that they come and kill people. By the period of the rain, those who were hiding, they get that chance of the rain and they go looking for what to eat. What did they eat? There was banana in the field, which were ready to be eaten. There were cassava in the field, hiding. I remember my mom was holding a little baby, and the other one was 4, and me too. I was about 6, like that, and my elder sister was 7. The little one who was 2, he died during that period, because there was a period where we separated. I and my siblings were separated from mom because there was an attack. So we ran, everybody runs to him or herself. Mom was captured by those who were hunting people. He was hidden in a traditional house, which is covered with the herbs. So they find themselves, it was mom and another friend they were hiding in the house there. So they come and knock on the door. They said, we know you are here. Just get out. They refused to come out. So they burned the house. When the smokes are many inside, mom and the friend of her, they get out. That woman was trying to run. They just killed her with a spear. Spear, you know, spear? Spear is a traditional tool. The woman died immediately. They beat her here, and then here she fell down. And the baby, they beat her, and then they thought all of 3 were died, so they left. After like 5 hours, when the rain comes down, my mom opened the eyes. She was not died at the time. She moved around, but the baby was about to die. Within like 2 days, she died. According to the history of Rwanda, 1950 something, there was some war, conflict in Rwandan population. Whoever who chose to hide in the church were not supposed to be killed. The killers were staying outside since the past, saying, now you are saved because you are in the church. Whenever you are out in the church, I will kill you. But in 1994, people were thinking it is the same, but it was different. There were many people who sheltered in the church as it was in 1950 something. But the killers said, okay, that's a good opportunity we have to find them together. So they started killing them in the church. Call them, come here is the house of Father, come and stay here. They came at a great number. Then after, they called those killers to come and kill them.
Nous avons sauté la clôture pour aller chez des religieux.
We were hiding in a religious organization of my sister and my husband.
Et nous sommes restés là-bas du 7.
We were there from April the 7th to the evening of April the 10th.
Le soir. Parce que quand nous étions là, les sœurs nous avaient donné une chambre.
We were given a small cell where we could hide.
Des militaires qui sont venus enregistrer toutes les personnes qui étaient cachées.
But the military came there to register everyone who was hidden at the Sisters of Charity.
Et les sœurs, quand elles sont venues dans notre chambre,
and there were all our Tutsi neighbors.
Nous avons dit non, on ne veut pas être inscrits.
The sisters came to register us, but we refused to.
Pour aller chez nous. On y arrive. Et la sœur nous dit, il y a
They said 2 military men were asking for money to protect us from the rest of the killers. Every day we paid these military men 50,000 each to keep the other killers away.
Chaque jour, nous avions donné 50 000 francs.
My husband said he would try to negotiate with one of the military men to escort us from Kigali to the south.
Il y a mon mari qui a dit, moi je vais aller contacter ces 2 militaires qui sont là.
We were supposed to leave at 5 a.m.
Leur demander s'ils peuvent nous aider à nous échapper de Kigali.
We were waiting for them to arrive, but the military men didn't come.
Donc on devait partir à 5 heures du matin.
At 6 a.m., we decided to escape on our own as we already knew a safe direction. We followed small roads right through the hills. There were a lot of Tutsi hiding there. There was a lot of noise and shouting. This attracted the killers who were hiding in the grass. They came down and started shooting.
Pardon.
I'm sorry.
C'est là qu'ils ont tué ma sœur.
They killed my sister.
Ils ont commencé.
They killed a lot of people.
Beaucoup de monde.
But it turned out that the burgomaster of this part of the republic was among us. He was on our side, and he started to play a skit. You must be friends of the RPF. I have to interrogate you.
Il a envoyé des policiers.
And then the policeman said that we should follow them to the bureau on top of the hill to testify. We went back to our car, our Jeep. We got in it, and they let us drive away that day.
So you sent me for the last time.
Yes.
With the it's be the same group.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think all of them they are up there.
Are they waiting for us?
Of course, they're waiting for you.
We're too late. I thought we'll go there in the morning.
Sorry.
Okay.
birthday!
Is this song for us?
Yes, let's sing for you.
Great. Hello, Marco. Woo! Let me hug you, sorry. Hi, my name is Kambibi. I'm Kambibi, and I'm so glad to see that my family is so big. I have never thought about it. I couldn't even expect. You are deep in my heart. Thank you, Murakaza. Shalom. No, I'm looking for that. I see Bella. No, she's not. It's not that. Hi. Do you remember me? Hi. Do you remember me? Hello. Shalom. Hey, you look like me. Yes? Yes. Hi, what's your name? I forgot, sorry. No, your name once again. Yeah. Purumnianes, yeah. Try to remember that. I can't promise.
This one is your auntie. Your auntie. Okay. It's a sister to Kambibi. Sister of Alphonse. My father.
So let's list the relatives you managed to find.
You know, I have to get my phone because I'm still learning Rwandan, and that includes me memorizing the names of my relatives.
Yes, they are tricky, especially the last names. First of all, what's the family's last name?
Intibalikuras.
Mom?
My father's last name was Intibalikur. His name was Alphonse. I was called Kambibi after my grandmother. That is Alphonse's mother. There's the eldest sister, Clemence. There's a sister, Assumpta, who was born after me.
Are they sisters, or do they have different mothers too?
They have different moms. You have to understand, Daddy was married, I think, 3 or 4 times. And Clemence was the eldest sister. Then he had 2 daughters, Alphonsine and Assumpta, me, and there's also a brother who lives in Malaysia now, in Malawi.
Bon appetit. Bon appetit. Do you know what's the Russian for bon appetit? Приятного аппетита. Yes. Right. Картофель. Banana. It's not banana.
It says some kind of turnip. I don't really understand it. Mostly vegetables, potatoes, carrots. String beans, this one. Peas.
So, how many nephews do you have?
16.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've got a picture that Oliver sent me at first. And when I looked at it, I thought, well, there are 6 of them. That's okay. And Dad prepared the presents for them. But then it turned out that there are 16 of them. The whole list, from 2 to 24 years old. Clemence is even a grandmother. I mean, I've got I don't even know how to call him, a grandnephew already.
I'm just wondering, how do you feel about your dad? I mean, if we look at him like at some random man, we personally do not know. The first thing that comes to my mind, what a womanizer. He's got kids all over the world. He's never talked to anyone. How do you feel about that?
Well, to begin with, as it turns out, he offered my birth mom to get
married?
Married, yes. Did it when he found out I was coming. She refused. I mean, in general, he was such a responsible man. I mean, all the women he had children with, he was ready to marry them, and he made it for sure. In this regard, he didn't shirk any responsibility.
Not for long, of course, but he got married.
Yes. There were the next children, the next wives then. I think that he seemed to have a presentiment. No, he's the only child in his family. It seems to me that he did everything he could prevent his family from disappearing.
What a nice excuse you've found for him.
Well, what else can I do? He's dead. They don't speak badly about the dead.
I have never seen Alphonse. Yes, my father. So can you tell me who was here?
Yes, we knew that Dad had gone to Russia to study, but we didn't know that he had a child there. Afonso was a highly respected man in the family. He studied abroad. My father was employed. He worked at a state institute.
No, he was in industrial.
Minister of Industry.
He was the director of the industry while I was a child, and he earned good money.
And can you tell me what, of course, it's a difficult question, but what happened, I mean, in 94, so if you want to talk about it, of course.
I was very young, I was 3. That day, we'd already been on a run for a few days. With my stepmother, my brother, and my dad. I remember my daddy holding my hand and my stepmother carrying the baby. He was only a day old. Just born, we walked and walked for a long time. I didn't even realize what had happened. All I saw was Daddy stop and say, "You're gonna have to go on your own from here. I think I got a bullet."
He was injured?
Yes. Yeah, he was shot. There was a bullet.
So you saw this?
And then we left with my stepmother. She was holding my hand, carrying the baby. I lost track of time. I remember we met some soldiers and they let us stay with them for a few days. They gave us porridge and water. Daddy was killed by that bullet.
On the first day, I didn't recognize anyone among the bodies I saw. And on the second day, there were families I used to know. I recognized people I knew. And you had to kill, even if you were friends before.
Can you remember how hard it was to pick up a machete and go kill someone for the first time?
At that moment, there was no emotion. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was like a robot. There were no thoughts.
I heard that violence against women was very common among the Hutu at that time. Like it was some mandatory rule in their code of killing and bullying the Tutsi. What did you see?
They didn't touch me, but they raped many Tutsi women, and after they raped them, they would take a long, sharp branch and pierce the woman through her vagina and up to her head. And they used to joke among themselves like, "Look, she's like Christ on the cross."
How are you? How are you doing?
They want to enjoy them. They wanted to enjoy them, so they violated. Today in Rwanda, we are facing a problem of your father was violating your mom. He tried to kill her, and your mom did not die. And after genocide, your mom found herself pregnant, and you were born. There are some kids who are like that in Rwanda. From the beginning, according to the stories that I used to listen and read, there were some mothers who were not able to accept those kids as their own, because when they face the kid, take her in the past and remember that moment.
So, was my father and you Hutu or Tutsi, first of all? Why was he killed? I mean, he wasn't Tutsi. Am I right?
In 1994, those Hutus who did not support the killing of Tutsis also risked being killed. My father never supported genocide. The one who rescued me from the pile of dead bodies was a Hutu. One of those who killed my family came back. He saw that I was alive and said, I can't kill you. You are beautiful. Your mom was beautiful, and she was always kind to me. Come with me. They will take care of you in my house. They hid me in the attic, gave me medicine, healed my wounds. I lived there for about 2 weeks, and when the time came, when my belly was already too big and it was time to give birth, they took me to the hospital. And my daughter was born. I have never seen them again since then. My daughter is 28 now. A year later, I gave birth to my next daughter. Now, I have 5 daughters, 5 girls.
You have 5 girls, 5 daughters, but where is your husband?
Yes, I had a husband. He is now deceased, but we hadn't lived together for a long time. We were divorced.
The hotel you see here is called the Rushel Kivu Resort. I chose this place because here I felt like I'm home. I was born on this hill. If you go up this hill, you will see a eucalyptus forest. We planted it sometime long, long ago. There are many of us, brothers and sisters, cousins, nephews and nieces. All of them were killed in the genocide. For them, to honor them, I came back here. Let's go see the hotel's rooms. This is the place where I live. When my husband is here, we're together with him. And when he's not here, I'm alone. I designed everything just the way I like, and I brought the comfort here during the pandemic. You can look out the window, you can see the lake.
"30 years ago, when you were sheltered in the hotel, did the room look like this?"
The room was not anything like this one. This is just a standard room. And at the Thousand Hills Hotel, you won't see beams like here or tables and chairs like this with national decor, rustic. As I recall, there were already 28 of us in the room. Yeah, that's a lot of people. We took turns sleeping. Some of us sat in the corridor, waiting while the others were asleep. The sleeping places were on the beds, on the carpets.
La chambre qu'on a vue d'abord. Et là, donc, il y a,
Men and boys, mostly they slept in the living room.
Donc, les hommes surtout,
The mattresses and rugs.
Sur les matelas,
And us, women and girls, we stayed in the bedroom.
les femmes et les filles, on
We
restait
slept on a bed and around it, on some mats.
côté du lit.
Rwandan Mill Colin Hotel, Thousand Hills, gained worldwide fame in 2004 thanks to Terry George's Hollywood blockbuster, Hotel Rwanda. This cult movie is based on a true story. I am sure you have watched the movie Hotel Rwanda, and I have a unique opportunity to ask what is real and what is fiction there.
Il y a un côté qui a été
In my own
joué
opinion, Rusesabagina was shown very truly.
à partir d'une histoire que j'avais racontée, comme je viens de vous la raconter.
He found us, helped us to move to the hotel, accommodated us, fed us, and gave us clothes.
Nous a nourris, même je
He gave me his wife's clothes.
Quand j'étais à l'hôtel, que je n'avais plus d'habits.
We often had dinner together and talked on various topics.
Des inérams, donc des tueurs.
We would often talk about politics, and Paul was not a racist.
Nous avions peur. Bien.
He condemned the policies against the Tutsis.
Et même
We loved him very much.
les gens des États-Unis surtout.
When the Americans wanted to give a prize to Rusesabagina,
Un award au mois de février 2000.
he called us and told us that they were going to give him a cow.
Paul nous a appelés. Il nous a dit,
That's what we call it here.
chers amis, il y a des gens qui
If
veulent
they want to
nous
thank
donner
you for something,
quelque
they
chose
give you
qui
a
vaut
cow.
une vache, parce que ici, quand
It's
tu es
more
un
valuable than
quelqu'un
money.
qui veut
In any
remercier
big
quelqu'un,
gratitude, we
tu
call
lui
it
donnes
giving
une
a
vache.
cow.
Chez nous, c'est la plus grosse
We
valeur.
went.
C'est plus que les dollars. Et donc,
The Americans kept asking me if I thought Paul was a hero.
Et vous êtes
I answered that it
les
depended on
meilleurs
what they meant by saying the word
Est-ce que vous
hero.
pouvez me comprendre? Nous l'avons accompli.
For me, hero is a brave person who is not afraid, who
Ils
fights.
m'ont surtout posé des questions puisque
But
c'est
Paul
moi
was
qui avais
afraid.
parlé avec tous les Américains. J'étais leur
He was hiding in the hotel like us. He wouldn't leave the hotel.
Est-ce que Paul était un héros? Je disais, ça dépend de ce que vous entendez.
If you've
par
seen the
héros.
movie, the hero goes
Héros, pour moi,
outside,
c'est quelqu'un
looks for food
de
amidst
petit,
dead bodies.
n'a pas
That
peur.
never
Mais
happened.
Paul, quand même, il avait peur comme nous.
Paul never went outside the hotel gates until he was evacuated to a safe area, where the OPEF had already cleared the killers.
Il va même au-dessus des cadavres pour
But he
aller
saved
chercher
us.
à
He
manger.
called the police officers who rescued us.
Bien sûr. Il n'a
If that is what you
jamais
mean,
franchi
he is a
le
hero.
portail.
As you can see, we have a number 28. That means we are remembering for 28th times. So next year, we are going to change the number, we put 29. So the museums there, that's where we are going to enter. So, and the museum, within the museum, we have two parties. We have another museum for like different genocide that happened all over the world. Then we have kids, another museum for children. Down there, that's where we have different graves. So many bodies are buried there, so we'll get a chance to enter inside. Here, Mary dealing with that crisis, this Romeo Dario was the head of UN. He was the UN assistant mission, head of UN assistant mission here in Rwanda. He had to do something at least. So that's why they are saying there, actually, that a few of 500 troops with authority to enforce peace could stop the genocide if we could have that big number. So during that period, there was they had to inform UN, the headquarters, that something bad is happening here. So there was different meetings, but nothing happened. But it was international countries or superpower countries, they didn't do anything. So this is what they're explaining here.
Can you explain more clearly why the 1000 Hills Hotel was such a safe place?
À l'hôtel des Mille Collines, there was a UN army at the Thousand Hills Hotel. Des forces de l'ONU, le général Dallaire, et eux. And General Dallaire was here himself. He was inside this hotel. There was nobody else protecting the Tutsis in the country. I don't know why they started defending the hotel. Une barrière de gendarmes, le gouvernement. Probably because all the expats were evacuated to the hotel on April the 9th. When the genocide broke out, all the embassy workers ran to Milcolin and found shelter there. Some of them were escorted from there to the airport so they could fly to their home countries unhindered. And some were sent by car to the neighboring state of Burundi.
What was the hardest and longest night during that period?
We spent exactly 30 days at the hotel. The scariest was May the 3rd. I remember it well. On that day, we had to leave for the airport. We were to be released on exchange. They said that Canada was ready to receive us. Several families, whom we also knew, were supposed to leave along with us. Some to Belgium, some to France, some to the United States. We signed up and the military men were supposed to accompany us. We loaded into UN military vehicles. But as soon as we left the hotel, there's a place at the exit, a toll with a barrier. And almost immediately, we were stopped by an armed cordon. They slashed car tires, shot at cars. They didn't let us pass.
To what extent do you think the number of victims would have been smaller if the United Nations and some international organizations and other countries had intervened in time?
I want to remind you that year, 1994, when all this was happening in just a little more than 3 months, it was the time when the UN had accumulated amazing experience having peacekeepers in Rwanda. They are precisely aimed at facilitating peacekeeping through the process that you and I have outlined, to reduce, so to speak, the degree of this conflict, of these things, to some minimal casualties. So these peacekeepers, they refer to, well, in the hearings that followed and in their other memoirs, they refer to the fact that the UN did not give any instructions, and they acted strictly according to the rules that had been accumulated by that time. There was no command from above. And let me remind you that the command, by the way, should have been given, for better or worse, by the next Secretary General, Kofi Annan, who was in charge of all this coordination.
Is it true that the United Nations Secretary General was approached twice at that time with the words, "Look at what is happening in Rwanda," but he waved it away because he was busy with Serbia, Kosovo?
Well, Serbia, yes, and many other things that had already accumulated in Yugoslavia. In general, who cares about Africa? Even now, in the 21st century, who really cares about Africa? Do you hear a lot that the Russian Federation is turning its face to the African continent? Well, so to speak, we don't see any real evidence of this turning, do we? And in the 90s, what was Africa for the absolute majority of developed countries in Europe, the Northern Hemisphere, and many others? It's some kind of periphery. It's not significant at all in the public consciousness. Therefore, of course, the preference was given to those destructive processes which took place in the Balkans, in Yugoslavia, which could be very dangerous in their further development. And there was their own massacre, their own genocide. And of course, you can say that discrimination against Africans was also manifested here to a certain extent.
Each village in Rwanda has a different date for the end of the genocide. The RPF gradually took control of province after province. On July the 4th, the capital, Kigali, surrendered.
For me, the genocide ended when our army in Kontami had came and stopped the Hutus. I said to myself, oh my God, we will be helped. Help has come, we will not be killed anymore. They were looking for all the wounded. Everyone who was covered with wounds and scars was taken with them to hospital. They were treating us, giving us medicine, feeding us.
How did they clear it? I mean,
Taking out the bodies or,
yes, yes.
or putting these kids together at some places?
Funeral, how it was organized, I mean, to take away this corpse.
It took like so many years, even till today, they are finding different bodies. Maybe some people may be killed in this area.
They just were buried?
They bury, no, they don't even bury them, they put them in a hole, and no one could know that something's there. Until, for instance, you may come and buy a land. When you are buying a land, when you are preparing the land, you are about to start constructing the house, you find that, so those bodies, they had to honor them. They take the body and put them in, they bury them in a honored way. So within Kigali, they take different bodies, they bring them here. That's why we have these big graves down there, we'll see them. But
I hope that my father's grave also will be found, because my sister were too small, they don't remember the place where he was killed.
We took out a truckload of trash of the territory. That's just the plants. I decided to leave these plants in the street. They can cover those technical parts which stick out in an unsightly way. We covered the bottom with pebbles there so that it would deliver moisture to the roots of the tree faster. In this way it will grow better. And you might have seen over there, on the veranda, there's a coffee table. I decided to make it from the root of an old tree that was cut down. I was 22 years old when I came to Rwanda as a French teacher. If a young man did not want to join the military, it was possible in those days to go on exchange in other countries and complete this kind of internship. I got to know Defroza, my wife, at that time. She was my student, but nothing happened between us then. And then in 1973, she was expelled from school like many educated Tutsi. She became a refugee in Burundi. And then she fled to Belgium from there. And one day she ended up in France. That's where I met her again, while visiting a priest who was a friend of ours. We've never parted since then. I remember that April of 1994 quite well, but it was not a surprise to us, because we had known for several years that genocide was being prepared. And besides, Defroza had returned from Rwanda a month earlier. She went to visit her mum. She was planning to stay with her mum for 2 weeks, but things were heating up, and it was too dangerous. Her mum said, "Go back to France. You have a husband, children. You shouldn't stay here." They said goodbye and never saw each other again. My mother-in-law was killed 2 days after the genocide had begun on April 8. My wife has no relatives left.
And not a single murder has been found. Alain and his wife Defroza began their own independent investigation seeking justice. They formed a collective of civil plaintiffs and hired lawyers. They are raising money for the trials through donations.
In 2001, the first trial took place in Belgium, that is to say, outside Rwanda. It was against, as they were called, the four from Butare. Those were a factory manager, a university professor, and two religious women who were tried in Brussels. My wife is also from Butare. We took part in this trial as witnesses. We testified, and the perpetrators were punished then. And our Belgian friends who initiated this process asked, "Do you do anything in France?" It was hard to answer, and that got me thinking. We lived very close to Belgium. There were many guilty people hiding in France as well. And then we created a team. We recruited 12 people to collect evidence, testimonies, facts, interview survivors, follow potential killers. We created an association, the Collective of Civil Parties of Rwanda. There were 6 cold cases of the Rwandan genocide in France at that time because there was no testimony. We decided to revive these cases and find new eyewitnesses. I'm here in Rwanda right now because of one of the cases in particular, looking for witnesses. They can be survivors or they can be killers. Killers can be released or still in prison. They usually give valuable testimony. We write them down, go back to France, give them to our lawyers, and they add them to the cases, and water the withered sprouts of old cases.
Look, as for Hutu trials that were held already after the genocide, is that true that there was not enough room in prisons?
Well, yes, it's true. But besides, there was a lack not so much of prison places in the country, but simply a lack of lawyers. It was impossible to organize thousands and thousands of trials. It would have taken them about 200 years with that load. Yes, if they had used traditional courts, it would have taken them 2 centuries to deal with it, leaving everything else aside. And Rwanda decided to return to its traditions. Before, people came together and used people's courts, gacaca, to resolve everyday issues between neighbours. People sat right on the grass in the shade of trees, and wise men listened to the parties to resolve the problem peacefully. And Rwanda dared to apply this tradition to the new realities, to try people for the crimes of genocide. It was justice without lawyers and without supreme assessors. Just 9 elders who seek justice for the accused and the accuser. About 2 million cases were solved this way because the gacaca functioned all over the country.
They were just ordinary people from the village, right? Did they become judges, or what did it look like?
Anyone could be elected by the community to the gacaca court, any honest person, anyone who had not participated in the genocide, who had not been in prison. I was elected by the General Council of our community on the recommendation of one of my neighbours, because I was innocent of any crimes. We worked in 3 different categories. One group dealt with real estate and other property, with destroyed houses, things that had been spoiled by looters. The second group solved murder cases. They were looking for those who killed the Tutsi, for information about those killed people. And the third group solved controversial cases, where someone had got a sentence but hadn't committed a crime. They would try to get them released or at least reduce his sentence. I was in the property group. We were looking for those who embezzled other people's property, put him in front of people and made him explain himself, prove what belonged to him and what belonged to the Tutsi. We decided how much the stolen property should be worth, whether it could be returned to its owner, or whether it could be compensated for what had already been spoiled. People were found guilty on the basis of information gathered from their neighbours. I saw him taking out chairs, and I saw who took the cows, and I remember he stole a goat.
In general, how ethical is it when a victim judges a murderer, a rapist? Is it possible to talk about a fair trial?
Well, yes, there could be victims among the judges or indirect victims whose relatives died. But what other way can you suggest? You have to import, so to speak, a few thousands, I don't know, French or French-speaking lawyers from somewhere for whom it will be extremely difficult to figure things out. I mean, that's unrealistic. It seems to me that it was a great blessing that they decided to hold this kind of court session. They relieved, to some extent, this accumulated internal tension. To some extent, I don't dare to judge to what extent exactly, and they managed to come to the point that today, the indications of nationality were removed from their passports. To be more precise, not the indications of nationality, but rather of ethnicity. And it's very important that now there are no counter-attempts to, well, deal with the murderers. They don't try to take revenge, and so on.
We, the refugees, the genocide survivors, did not trust the gachachas at first. When I was in charge, many troubled people turned to me, thinking that the gachachas were determined to justify all those who participated in the genocide. But many of them repented through gachachas. They apologized, cried, and showed the sincerity of their regret. It is especially valuable that they showed us where they buried our relatives after they killed them. At least we had an opportunity to bury our relatives rather than consider them missing. Thanks to the testimony of the Hutu killers, we were able to find the leaders and the creators of the genocide.
The first case we started investigating was Pascal Sebekangua. He was an army captain. We found out that he was hiding on the island of Mayotte. It's a French island in the Indian Ocean. And by the way, many genocide criminals were hiding there. We found out that he was there by tracing the traffic of his false documents. We got his address from a journalist who worked in Mayotte, and we had him cornered. He was arrested, transported to Paris, and tried there. In 2014, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 2016 and in 2018, we brought a retrial against two bourgmestres, mayors from eastern Rwanda. They're in prison now, convicted of aiding and abetting murderers. They're in France as well. Then we have two doctors, but their case has been postponed. There's not even a trial date yet. It was a common story when, during the genocide, the injured Tutsi came to the clinics to have their wounds patched up by doctors who work for the Hutu. They could take patients and send them straight to the killers. Dr. Sostin Manyamana, he is still a practicing physician. We need a witness to convict him of mass murder, because they found mass graves on the territory of the hospital where the Tutsi were locked up.
One of the most wanted suspects of the Rwanda genocide has been arrested in France.
Felician Kabuga, the man accused of bankrolling and organizing much of it.
A genocide which Kabuga is accused of bankrolling and using his radio station to broadcast the calls for murder.
It was not until the fall of 2022 that the trial of Felicien Kabuga, Radio Thousand Hills sponsor and media manager, began in The Hague. All these years, propagandist Kabuga had been hiding in his French mansion and tried to forget about everything as if it was a bad dream. But, c'est la vie, the main question of the court: did the words affect the actions so much? Scientists helped with the answer. David Yanagisawa-Drott, an associate professor of economics at Harvard, meticulously calculated the coverage area of the bloody radio station. The fact is that Rwanda is a hilly country, hence the name Thousand Hills Radio. In some villages, the signal just didn't reach them, and what he found out was that there were far more murders in the station's stable reception area. According to his calculations, the propaganda increased the number of victims of genocide by almost 100,000 people. Words do kill.
They were looking for him all over the world, trying to find him in different parts of the world, and he ended up here. He lived with his family in the suburbs of Paris. He was arrested. He's old now, he's 87 years old and already in poor health, but he still has to be tried. We have to be patient because it's going to be a long trial. The case was more than 30 years ago. They will track his life since then. The court sits in the mornings, 3 times a week. I think that he's not even present at the hearing of the case due to his elderly age. What will it bring us? I don't know yet, but I can say that I am personally glad that he's being tried, despite his advanced age.
Whom do you consider the main killer? The man who picks up a machete and goes to cut a neighbor's family? Or the propagandists who forces him to do it?
Well, of course, I think propagandists are to be blamed more for these crimes than ordinary murderers, because they ruled the whole armies. And a person in this case is just some living meat, a cog, nothing more. But these people who pull their strings like puppeteers, of course they are primarily responsible for this.
Those who spread propaganda, hatred, they brought more evil than those who killed. Because you can't kill without a reason. And they gave that reason by proving that the Tutsi were the enemy. Certainly, the main responsibility for the genocide, of course, lies with the minds of those who created radio and television. Among them, Kabuga, Habyarimana, and other shareholders of this media. They were the main thinkers. The ideologues must work hard to make mass murder possible. Russian singer Garek has a song, "You should be afraid the most of those who say, I know how to do it." Everyone has their own degree of responsibility, but the scariest and most disgusting people are the ones who call, who, so to speak, guide and explain what should be done. By the way, I think this has been proven in Nuremberg, so to speak, repeatedly by the example of certain people.
The editor-in-chief of Kangura magazine, Hassan Giz, was caught in 1997. He was given 35 years in prison for incitement of genocide. Jean Bosco Barayagwiza was found in Cameroon in 1996. He was proved to be Rwandan policy director at the time of the genocide, and he personally handed out manuals to propagandists. Sentenced to 32 years, died in prison in 2010 of hepatitis C. Thousand Hills radio host Valerie Bamerica has been called the most bloodthirsty of all propagandists. She was famous for giving the names and addresses of the unkilled Tutsi on her airwaves, urging them not to waste bullets on them, but to cut their enemies into pieces. She was caught in 1999 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. The trial of Felicien Kabuga continues.
ariko se mama noneho za nkotanyi zanerefonaga zagiye he zigomba kuba zarashize enga twiririmbire muze twishime nshuti inkotanyi zashize muze twishime nshuti yewe imana ntirenganya koko.
I was arrested in 1995 and put in jail. And I spent almost 8.5 years there. I felt guilty when I was in prison. As soon as I got there, I thought, why am I here? What have I done? I'm here because I did something terrible. Time passed, and I asked for God's forgiveness. But I thought that people, relatives of those killed, would not forgive me.
You live in the village today. Do you meet the families of the people you killed?
At first, when we met again, we both were afraid. We were afraid that someone might kill again. I apologized to the family whose members I killed. At first, they didn't forgive me, as if they didn't realize what was happening at all. But then we met again and again, and each time I apologized, and now they have forgiven me.
I know that there was not enough room in the prisons, and many Tutsi continued to live next door to those who tried to kill them. What was this period like?
Rwandan government said through the Minister of Justice, they said, whoever who repent and accepted what he did in genocide is getting a chance of being set free from the jail, from the prison, going back to the community. People in the jail, they start saying, okay, I killed 100 people. There are many people who killed 100 people, and I'm begging for mercy. Please allow me to leave from the prison, get some mercy of the president. They coming back in the community. There are organization, example of an organization that which is called the Prison Fellowship Rwanda. Prison Fellowship Rwanda used to move in the prison, and then they preach them. They said that period of darkness, you were under the influence of the demons. That's how you killed the people. But today, you can get back to life. They used to combine those who roast their people and those who killed them. They used to just join them for unity and reconciliation.
And the people building the hotel, all of them participated in the genocide. They did their time in prison. They live here, and they work on the construction site. The man who plants flowers in our garden, his name was Sostin. He spent 19 years in prison. He's 86 now. He was my teacher when I was in elementary school. I invited him to work at the hotel, but I didn't even know he was in prison for committing genocide. One day, one of my nephews came to visit me and asked me if Sostin had told me how he had shot Tutsis with his bow during the genocide. I sat down as if I had been knocked down. I asked my nephew what I should do. I couldn't see him anymore. My nephew brought me to my senses with the phrase, he suffered his full punishment. He spent 19 years in prison. He realized his guilt and repented. Give him a chance. I took a few deep breaths, and then I called him, and I said, sit here. Tell me, how could you kill my brothers and cousins, my relatives, aiming at them like archery targets, practicing like in a shooting gallery? He was shaking all over, and he started to say, I love Kagame. I love Tutsi. I really do. I said, no, that's not what I'm asking. I said, how? And he wet himself in front of me, right in his pants. I didn't fire him. I thought I came back here to my homeland to try to educate these people to be human beings. I told him, imagine how strong our nation would have been if you didn't kill my brothers and sisters. How amicably we would live. He remembered at once that my brother gave him a cow, and my mother found a wife for him. I asked, are you still capable of doing such things? He said he would never do such a thing. Yes, it is very hard to forgive those who killed your relatives. It's impossible to forget. We live with it. But we try to get over it for the sake of our descendants. First of all, because we don't want our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to suffer. To be called cockroaches and snakes. To have them kicked out of school just because they are of the wrong ethnicity. It's better to be Rwandans. And we teach young people and children now that to be Rwandan is to wish well to all of us.
Would you be able to be friends today with the son of the people who killed your brother and sister?
No, but there's someone who came to mom and confessed to her at home. He said, I was the one who beat you during that time when you were in the house. He said, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for what I did. And my mom said, it's okay.
I have already forgiven them because God helped us to survive, to live until today. And so we don't have to remember all the time about bad people and their ideas. People may have been forced to follow orders, we don't know. But now we have forgiven them and tried to live in peace with them.
How are you living today? How supportive is the government? I don't know if there are any social payments to the victims of the genocide.
My life today, you see, I am already old, I don't work anymore. The government pays me 25 tosen, it's about $25. And also some kind people, well, for example, a priest can help. The church gives me $1,500, about $15. I live in this house and I pay $40 for it. And there is no other support anymore with food or water. No.
Hi, is it your room? Okay. Oh, I see. And what is this is radio? Okay, okay. And who lives here?
So this is for visitors. It's for visitors.
Visitors, for guests?
Yes, for guests.
Okay, this is my room, yeah? So when I sleep and go ready. Oh, I see my bag here.
That was your gift.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, very cozy.
How shocked were you by their living conditions?
I suspected that life was not easy for them. Can't say that they shocked me very much. I realized that they have a hard time, but they are very hard-working people. Their strength is that they are together, they live as a family, that they support each other. And the amazing nature that surrounds them in the mountains probably makes up for all these material disadvantages. It's really hot here. Why else do we pay so much attention to the indoor environment? Because our climate is different. Well, people spend a lot of time at home in winter because they can't go outside. Here, on the contrary, get up at 5 a.m. early in the morning, go straight to work and come back only at 6 p.m. Sleep, eat and go to bed. And children, they spend most of their time outside.
So yes, how you organize your housekeeping, where do you take your food, your water, electricity and so on?
We grow everything ourselves. We only go to the market sometimes.
Is there a problem with water?
No, there's a river nearby. Sometimes the rain gets in the way. It makes the water muddy, but when it's gone, the river water is very clean.
Cows and pigs and so on.
We have a cow, a goat and a pig. The cow is Rwandan. We take care of her, and for that we take a part of the milk for ourselves.
What about holidays? How do you present, or how do you spend the holidays? As maybe you have some national holidays or just somebody's birthdays.
There are special holidays such as Christmas or birthdays, but for us they are just ordinary days, because only those people celebrate it who can afford it.
And what about the phone? What about connection? Because we couldn't connect for a long time as we don't have a phone possibility. So do they have phones here? Can we talk by video call? Or or it's impossible?
No, we don't have smartphones. Sometimes we ask our neighbors for a phone if we need to call somebody.
There was a big house in the center of Kigali. After the war, that house, unfortunately, the sisters were very young. They were 6 and 4 years old when they escaped from that house. There were temporary camps in the airport area. And now the house, I know that it's been either given to the state or someone else owns it. But I'm going to try to find out more about where the house is. Maybe we'll see and find the place again. Unfortunately, when my father was killed, there was absolute devastation, chaos all around. It's hard to find anything right now. And since they still had this parents' house in Rulindo, they all went back to the village, back to their roots. And it probably didn't happen because life was kind to them, but because of necessity, just because it was the only option.
Can you tell me, what is the most popular radio station in Rwanda now? Popular?
Now we have RBA, Rwanda Broadcast Agency. This is like a governmental radio. It is very much popular because sometimes they have some good news and accurate one. We also have another one which is called Radio Dis, also dominating, especially in the morning. In the morning they have like they talk about something called Zinduka, like wake up early. That's a very interesting, how do you say, emission, whereby so many people follow that.
How is going on in here in Rwanda? I mean, the word, speak about propaganda or something like that. Do you?
We have some governmental radios. Per district, we have some local radios. They are under government. But we also have many, many private radios. But because we don't have some conflict within the country, it is hard for you to find a radio which has a propaganda or which is committed to have like a propaganda which is going against the government. Normally, this propaganda should be there because there's a problem. But because we don't have a problem, you can't find any radio having a propaganda.
Danje tuzaba makasi kaka biso ga tomatiri koronu kwa ngo turazamutse n'igikombe sasa ya biso ni chat.
A journalist by profession, 5 years working as a journalist. That's how I start shifting from television to YouTube. I created a content related to psychology and philosophy, and I'm telling you that YouTube is new in Rwanda. They are like 2 years or 3 years when we start using YouTube. Everybody around here is a YouTuber. Some people on YouTube, they upload things which are harmful. Some opposition is uploading things on YouTube, abusing readers and officials of Rwanda.
Let's go to my office. This is where we train journalists, upgrade their qualifications so that they can work in the new reality. This is a training session on social media. How to disseminate information via social networks. And here, it was training on how a reporter should work during the elections.
What about freedom of speech in Rwanda today?
I cannot deny the fact that there is freedom of expression in Rwanda. But there are abnormal people who make a lot of mistakes. They create their own problems. You're in the crosshairs if you call yourself a journalist. If you make a mistake, you go to jail. We have an example of an organization that made themselves press cards. They were caught and they said, "Since you're journalists, you will be punished for your actions." They proclaimed themselves political oppositionists, and it ended very badly for them. The cards were confiscated, and the leader was sentenced to 7 years in prison.
That's it? He went to jail for calling himself a journalist.
He criticized the country. He said everything the government did was bad. He was a negative guy.
But today, it can hardly be said that the Hutu and Tutsi have succeeded in building the beautiful Rwanda of the future. Media are complaining about government censorship. The unwanted are sent to jail. And journalists who express the point of view inconvenient for the authorities are declared persona non grata and expelled from the country. For example, the BBC was banned here precisely because of its genocide report. And even for us, just to shoot video on the street, we have to get a government-approved license. Rwanda has fallen to 136th place in the World Press Freedom Ranking. Russia, however, is already on the 155th. It is surprising that journalists, and especially Sam Gody, who was so oppositional in the 90s, today endorse the current censorship. The genocide has broken the very notion of freedom of speech in Rwanda. The matter is that the Radio Thousand Hills and the Kangura newspaper were not state but private media. And now Rwandans are afraid of anything private. And all of them agree the state must control newspapers, radio and TV. Today, Paul Rusesabagina is in jail for terrorism. What happened?
He changed drastically. He became a terrorist. He created a political party while living in Belgium and the United States. It was called the National Liberation Force. And this organization started attacking Rwanda after 2004.
The hero and righteous man, Paul Rusesabagina, is now an enemy of the people in Rwanda. The official explanation is that he created an undesirable organization, the activities of which could undermine the constitutional order of the country. Rusesabagina himself claims that he simply criticized the government. He accused the president of election fraud, murders, and illegal actions. He wanted to register his own party, and then, according to the scenario already known to every Belarusian and Russian, in August 2020, Rusesabagina was invited to make a speech by a preacher from Burundi. He sent a private plane to Dubai to pick him up, but on the way to Burundi, the plane took an unexpected turn to Rwanda, where Paul was captured at the airport. He is convicted of terrorism and sent to prison for 25 years.
He started bribing the military and formed an army for his party. And later he announced to journalists, yes, we must seize power, we must liberate and lead the country. He openly admitted in his interviews that he wanted to overthrow Kagame, our president. If he thought being president meant fighting in the forests and killing innocent children, old men and women, he was wrong. All the people who live here, they are happy. They are satisfied with everything, both the regime and the law. The population is very happy with the current regime.
But do you call him a political prisoner? Or has he really got what he deserved? This is a really long prison sentence.
For me, he wasn't a politician, not a bit. Paul was a terrorist who killed innocent people. Maybe not him personally, but he gave orders to his army. For me, he deserves this punishment. He is a terrorist.
Don't you write him letters in prison?
No, we're not in touch now. The last time I spoke to his wife was in 2005.
Where's his wife now?
In the United States. She's there with her children.
Et une fois, j'avais dit, pourtant, j'avais écrit sur Twitter.
One of them is our goddaughter. One day she tweeted to me, "You stopped being our godmother. You betrayed our father." I don't understand how I betrayed him.
I'm interested in your opinion on Rwanda today in relation to other countries in Africa. How well is everything going there now? What is the level of democracy there? The number of military and police officers we saw in the street, of course, strikes me.
Look, if, we have half the country in camouflage, it doesn't strike you, does it?
It strikes me just the same. And the Autozaks Tverskaya strike me as well. When I ask the locals, maybe you know something about it, about so many military men, they tell me that there is no other way to avoid that horror, and that this political system must be authoritarian, totalitarian, otherwise everyone will get angry again, take a machete, and again. The conflict has been extinguished, but not solved. Is there something like that? What do you think?
In general, it's a distinctive feature of any authoritarian regime of varying degrees of authoritarianism to claim that this is the only way, so to speak, to keep everything under control. Try to let go of the reins, you will see what will happen. In Germany, as you and I probably remember, the process of denazification took some time and required quite serious external control, so to speak, and internal authoritarian control. But just a few years later, somehow, they managed to cope, and Adenauer retired and new people appeared in politics. They started to create and develop new, quite democratic parties. It didn't stop them. The previous horrible experience didn't stop them. Now everything is all right with democracy there.
As for Rwanda in general, have you seen this modernity, or is it still some kind of third world country? Everything is very backward. Are there hipsters here?
Yes, there are. I mean, we were at the festival yesterday. There is a huge stratum here, despite the fact that the country is small, but there are a lot of neighboring countries, Tanzania, DRC, Côte d'Ivoire, and so on, which form their own contemporary art cell. Here, in general, November is considered to be a rather active month in Rwanda. We were very lucky to get here at this time. There are events taking place here all month long. If you paid attention, there was a week-long conference by a Swedish organization to support women politicians. A lot of people who have lived in France, London, Belgium also came here. Of course, they also bring their own flavor, their own progressiveness. I've met a lot of young people who also have a dad from Finland, for example. Their mom is, I don't know, from London and so on. For some reason, they also return to Rwanda and live perfectly well here and continue their activities, but with this background that they've got in Europe.
So the parents of these children went to live abroad, and these children want to live here, in the motherland.
Yes. I met a very interesting girl. She's a curator, she's a model, and she's going to open some kind of fashion gallery here. That is, she wants to deal with African fashion. But she has lived in London before and has learned a lot of interesting things from there. Even Russians live here, IT people, for example. Because it is, I don't want to knock on the table, of course, but so far it is one of the safest countries.
In Africa?
Yes.
All in all, how do you feel now? Are you still a stranger here or not?
I don't feel like I'm a stranger. I really like the way they address you. They say sister. It just kind of puts you right at ease. You immediately feel like you are one of them, not a stranger.
What words did you learn?
I learned hello, Marago, thank you, Marakosi, how are you, Amakru, and shit. I forgot how in Kinyarwanda I love you. Shame on me.
Is it written down?
It is.
Let's have a look.
I gotta turn on my phone. I bought a phrase book today, by the way.
Yeah? My favorite thing about a phrase book is that it can help you ask whatever you want, but then you'll have to deal with the answer.
Yeah. By the way, the artists complimented me. They said I have no accent.
It really suits you.
I like the language itself very much. I think it's very musical, beautiful. When I hear people speak it, it's just like a song. In fact, I have a dream. I will go to my sisters tomorrow. I want to learn with them this song they greeted me with. The most important phrase is Ndagukunda. I love you.
Ndagukunda.
Ndagukunda.
Do you know how to love your neighbor?
First of all, I think you should love yourself. Angry people, in my opinion, are mostly unhappy people. First of all, they don't love themselves. And that's the same as helping people and through that helping yourself. Right?
Yeah, we're all missing a little bit of what?
Love.
Of your this Marakunda.
Ndagukunda.
Right, exactly. Do you know how to love your neighbor? How to make someone else your neighbor?
Yes, this is the central teaching of the gospel, but we don't dare ask victims to love murderers. It is beyond human power. We are not asked to love each other, just to live together.
Gandhi said that you'll find yourself once you are lost in the service of others. You cannot serve someone when you hate him or her. So when you love, you give love. When you make people happy, you feel the happiness. Once again. Zirikana gusiryo banga ry'umukunzi wiyanganura bazwe no kumutegeza wimama twabashaka kukurya umutima intambwe umaze gutera nibwo butwari irya nzu niyo nzira nziza.
In Russia, after the Great Patriotic War, our grandparents often raise a glass at all family celebrations and say, if only there was no war. For us, their grandchildren, this toast was often incomprehensible. Only today, when Russia is at war with Ukraine, it has become clearer than ever. Do you have something similar? I don't know if it is a toast or some phrase that survivors of genocide often say.
We light candles. I'm sorry. We light candles and say, there will never be a genocide again.
Et quand on a une fête,
Or when we have a holiday, or when children in my family get married, for example,
les enfants de ma famille qui se marient,
we say a toast and we pour a glass of champagne or wine into the ground. We say the names of those who were killed, with whom we drink this glass. Because they're still with us, all our dead relatives.
là où nous sommes,
Because they are everywhere. There will never be a genocide again.
iryanzu niyo nzira nziza inyibutsa amararo menshi.
Small present for me. This is from Russia. Let's do it. Take this one. This is from Moscow. This is for you. It's you know how it looks. You know how it plays. Who wants? One more. It's for you. I have one more. Can you explain that this is somehow national present from Russia, Matryoshka? Yeah, take it. And can you please make a photo for me? Can you please make a photo for me? Cheese.
iryanzu niyo nzira nziza inyibutsa amararo menshi n'ibishize karanyuze. umutima ugukunda iteka ndakwibuka nawe ubwitaye ryo nusa